You cannot help someone who hasn't decided that they want things to be better. Unless they make the decision that they want to make things better, forget it. You're wasting your time. And all it'll do is hurt you. And I should also tell you that that was one of Roger's necessary preconditions for psychotherapy. Another one was honesty and communication. But the person who was coming in for the therapeutic process had to be there voluntarily. And it's a weird thing, and I don't know how to account for it, but I don't think that you can talk someone who doesn't want to have things be better into wanting that. They have to come to that decision on their own. So they come in with having made that. So it's, for example, it's very, very difficult, maybe it's impossible, to do psychotherapy with someone who's been remanded by the court. You know, because they're there involuntarily and they'll just put up a wall. You know, not always, but a lot of the time they'll just put up a wall and just wait it out, you know. And you're not going to get in there with a screwdriver and pry off that shell. So the person has to step forward, in a sense, and say, well, you know, there's something not right about the way things are going for me, and it could be better. And someone else might be able to help me figure that out. So, and that's a really good attitude to have, by the way, when you're listening to someone, because disagree with them or not, or agree with them or not, there's always the possibility that they will tell you something you don't know. And like lots of times when people are talking, what they're trying to do is to impose their viewpoint on another person. You hear conversations like this all the time, and they're arguments, really, and they're often ideological arguments. It's like, you're right and I'm wrong, or, sorry, that never happens. I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm just going to hack at you until you shut up or you agree. Really, you'll never agree, because you just don't get someone to agree that way. It's not possible. But you might be able to cow them into silence or anger. But that's a dominance hierarchy thing. That's not a real conversation. It's just all you're doing is establishing that you're, you know, a lobster with bigger claws than the person that you're trying to pick at. A therapeutic conversation, which is a genuine conversation, is one in which both the people in the conversation are oriented towards a higher state of being while they're conversing. And you can tell when you're in a conversation like that, because it's very, very engaging. In fact, if the conversation isn't engaging, then that's a sign that you're not having a conversation. And that's a really useful thing to know too, because here's another thing I could tell you that if you take to heart will save you an awful lot of grief and misery. If you're talking to someone and they're not listening, shut up. Just stop. It's like you can tell if they're not listening, and if they're not listening, quit saying words. You'll just feel like a fool anyways, because it's like you're throwing ping pong balls against a brick wall. You know, you're not getting anywhere. If they're not listening, that's a sign that the situation isn't set up to allow you to progress on the path that you're choosing. And so then you have to stop and you think, okay, well, what's going on here? Why is the person not listening? You know, am I being too forceful? Do they not understand what I'm saying? Is it too much about me? Do they want to talk? What's going on? Maybe they don't want to be here. There's all sorts of possibilities, but that's when you have to wake up past what it is that you're trying to impose on the situation and explore and see what's there. And that's way more interesting than trying to impose your viewpoint. Another thing is that if you're talking to someone, you know, I like to talk to people whose political beliefs are very different from mine, because I can't really understand how someone's political beliefs can be really different than mine, you know, because I've got kind of a coherent representation of my beliefs. But it's very interesting to talk to people who radically differ, because they'll tell you things that you haven't considered. That doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but it's much more informative to walk away from a conversation having learned something that you didn't know than it is having won the stupid argument, which you can't win anyways. And that's especially the case when you're dealing with people who are close to you, that you will have around for the rest of your life. You cannot win an argument with them. Because all that will happen is if you win, they'll get you back. Sooner or later. They won't listen to you the next time you have something to talk about. Or they'll get resentful and then they won't be helpful. You just can't win an argument with someone that you will have repeated contact with. What you can do, however, is you can have a conversation that's a real conversation, and maybe you can come to terms about the thing that you're discussing, and that's negotiation. You know, it's like, well, what do you want? But you have to really want to know. It's like, we're having an argument. Okay, what is it that I would have to do, because we're having this argument, what would I have to do in order to satisfy you? You know, and then the other person will think, well, there's nothing you can do to satisfy me because, you know, I'm so mad at you. It's like, that's not helpful. The other person has to think, okay, what are the conditions for my satisfaction? You know, so maybe, you know, your partner says, you're not paying enough attention to me. It's like, all right, what do you want? Exactly. You know, do you want to talk for 15 minutes at breakfast? Or do you want to talk for 20 minutes at lunch? Or do you want to spend an hour at night watching TV? Or like, do you want me to act differently when I come home and I'm at the door? It's like, you're feeling unattended to. What do you want? Well, then they'll say, well, if you love me, you should be able to figure that out. Yeah, that's wrong, because you're stupid. You won't be able to figure that out, because, you know, what the hell do you know? So the other person, unless they want to corner you into just being the kind of loser who can't figure things out, which is why are they with you then, you know, they need to think about that. It's like, oh, what is it that I want from this person? What would constitute more attention? Right? And that's making the argument much more high resolution. And then it gives the other person a chance to actually respond. And then you have to allow your partner to be a moron, because of course they are. And so once you tell them what you want, you have to let them do it badly like 10 times, because they're never going to do it right the first time. So sometimes when I've helped people sometimes with marital problems, and one of the things I often recommend is that they go on a date. You know, they take each other away from their home where the kids are usually, or maybe not, maybe they don't have kids, it doesn't matter. And they do something that's just focused on each other. You know, and of course, first of all, they tell me they don't want to do that. It's stupid. It's like, it isn't, by the way. It's not stupid. It's like, oh, you don't want to go out and have an enjoyable time with your partner. You think your relationship's going to survive when all you do is snipe at each other and do horrible things together. It's like, well, no, that's not going to work. So then they'll finally say, okay, we'll go on a date. They'll both look disgusted by the whole idea. And then they go, and it's like, it's just miserable, right? Like, one person says something to the other that immediately sets them off when they're out on the date, because they're kind of mad about going anyways. And then they come back and go, well, that just didn't work, and we're never going to do it again. It's like, no. So you're telling me you're never going to go out and do something enjoyable with your partner again, because it didn't work very well. It's like, people don't think about it, you know? It's like, so maybe when you take your partner out and you haven't been getting along, it takes you like 10 times before you have a relatively okay time. But 10 times, if you're going to go out with them, let's say, I don't know, let's say you go out with them every 2 weeks. It's 25 times, and let's say you're going to be with them for 30 years if you manage to, you know, get your act together. So that's 30 times 25, so that's 750 times. So if you practice 10 times, then you might be able to have 740 good times out together. You know, and that's an underestimate. So 10 times of practicing is hardly a problem for that kind of return. So this is all part of this Rogerian, like, following this path is all part of this Rogerian process of listening. And listening is trying to figure out what the hell the other person is telling you. And understanding at the same time that they don't know. Like, especially if they're upset. They're not even sure what they're upset about. And they don't know what they want, you know. Because you can corner them by saying, well, you want to be attended to more. What do you want? And they'll try some weird defense like I told you already. Like, if you loved me, you'd already know, which is a cliche, and it's a foolish cliche, so you can't let that stop you. I should also tell you the sorts of barriers that people will put up if you listen to them too.